So, Judge Crickler has this foundation called Freedom Under Law, and there seems to be a tension in that idea that the law is about restricting freedom, and you're involved in the Fremont Foundation's Rule of Law project, and the idea that equality before the law is an important value, that non-racialism is an important value. Can you tell us about some of those perspectives, what you're involved in to further those values?
Yeah, no, firstly, freedom under law, there is absolutely no tension. And again, I must always take my hat off, figuratively, of course, to Hayek, who made the point that freedom without law is not freedom. Freedom under law is freedom. That is the only thing you have, and that's what we call civil liberty, effectively. There is certainly no tension in that. The tension comes in with how we've redefined law, and this is something that's come for many centuries, in that for most of human history, law was a given. You don't go back to 1000 BC and you find Intestate Succession Act. It doesn't exist. It's a new invention. The idea that a group of people can come together in a room and write on a piece of paper their opinions and then just call it an act, and now this is suddenly law that we must all kind of fall in line with. This is a ridiculous idea, if you ask me, and it's a relatively new idea, and that is where the tension comes in. If you call that law, this is what Hayek would call the taxis as opposed to the nomos. Nomos is the law as it exists that is binding of everyone, what we in criminal law would call the malum in se, things that are obviously criminal by their nature as opposed to the malum prohibitum, the things that are deemed to be unlawful by a group of politicians. If you have a healthy conception of what law is, then there is no tension between freedom and law. But yeah, some of the things that obviously the FMF is involved in, it all comes back to the Constitution. It's supreme law. And Ernst and I and Herman Pretorius and Ernst van Zyl had a debate a while back where we specifically talked about the inadequacy or the adequacy of the Constitution in defending freedom in South Africa. I'm pretty optimistic about the written text of the South African Constitution. I think it's pretty standard. I think it's not an outlier. It's quite a classically liberal constitution. If you read its words, it's pretty good. It comes down to how it's been interpreted. I wrote a column for the Daily Friend a while back where I said that the courts must have a classical liberal conception of constitutionalism to be able to adequately judge the South African Constitution. We don't have that. That's unfortunately not the reality we live. But as far as we're concerned at the FMF and the Rule of Law Project, we read the text, what it says. It says South Africa is a society founded upon the value of non-racialism and the supremacy of the Constitution and the rule of law. And we go to court and we insist that this is how things must be. I don't know how optimistic you necessarily always are about the courts. I'm always pessimistic about the courts finding in our favor. But to me, it's not necessarily about winning. It's about saying that this is the right answer to constitutionalism. This is the right answer to non-racialism. And I think we have a great platform for that. And this case that we have coming up where we, on hate speech and specifically about non-racialism and equality before the law, is an opportunity for us to elevate to the level of constitutional discourse, really the statement, the conviction that, listen, this word has a meaning, non-racialism. It doesn't mean racialism, it means non-racialism. And we'll insist on that. It's a very textualist argument, but also very much a liberal argument. And I think with time, look, freedom is never going to be a short-term game. With time, one hopes that you convince enough people to come to the realization that, listen, the words on the paper mean something, and that we need to respect that meaning. And that